And welcome to another episode of Longevanity. I am just getting all of our streaming software up and ready, so we will begin shortly. There we go. I think everything is now up and running. All right, so welcome again to another lunchtime episode of Longevanity, where we try to bring the best of anti-aging medicine forward in actionable ways that you can bring forward to live your very best life. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't been here before, my name's Amber Bocknek. I'm actually a physician up in Aurora, Ontario, just north of Toronto in Canada, and I have a focus practice on really trying to live well. Really, if you were to sum it up, we do cosmetic procedures as well as anti-aging interventions. Really, the whole focus is trying to look your best, feel your best throughout life. So I want to welcome you to today's episode. At the beginning and the end of every episode, we always have to talk about the important things, which is to note that everything we talk about here is for discussion purposes and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be specific personal medical advice. Yes, this is live. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any specific illness or disease. And this is where these conversations are meant just to empower you and give you some talk points to go back to your own primary care provider and see what you can do to harness some of this information and bring it forward into your life so that you can enjoy the benefits going forward as well. So today, actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about the crossroads, the intersection between cosmetic anti-aging and actually the wellness part of anti-aging. It's kind of an interesting intersection, and the title of our podcast, Longevanity, kind of reflects this interplay. One actually directly interacts with the other. In order to sort of look well, you actually have to be well. And so fundamentally, this is where the two things come into play. So a little bit about my history, if you're just joining us here for the first time. I've been actually interested in working in the world of non-surgical, natural-looking cosmetics for a very, very long time. I actually started the cosmetic aspect of my practice back in 1999 and have sort of seen many iterations of the approach to cosmetic anti-aging. When I started, I was just a wee baby of like 28 when I started my anti-aging or cosmetic part of my practice. And really my priorities at that age and stage, when I wasn't experiencing some of the other things that life has subsequently brought to me, was really focused more on my priorities at the time, which was just trying to look my best, look as good as I felt. Because I felt well at that point, lots of energy, I could go forever. And then again, life kind of adds up. And as I'm getting older now, and I have technically come to accept the fact that, like many of my patients, I am a middle-aged woman in my mid-50s, that things are different. So I can actually feel changes associated with my body aging as I also do this little lovely journey of perimenopause and menopause. And with life experience, like everything else, I think it really shapes what your priorities are. And so of course, I still want to look the best I can for the age that I'm at. I'm not trying to pretend like I'm in my 20s, and nor would I want to pretend or overdo myself that way. But my focus now is to trying to feel my best and remain as healthy as I can with a go forward philosophy. And it's almost like an aha moment where, again, I came to that realization that if I really am genuinely healthy, if I really do take good care of myself from a physical point of view, that radiates out in how you look and move and talk and feel and all the rest. So although I started initially at the cosmetic side of things, I now realize that, again, youthfulness, what we see, actually comes from within. And so as I'm losing some of my natural youthfulness, it's become a real priority to preserve my health and do whatever I can to optimize it so that I have the best health span going forward. Again, non-verbal communication makes up 80% of the context. So how we communicate to ourselves matters. And I mean that from a nonverbal point of view, how we perceive ourselves. So if we perceive ourselves as looking great for our age, if we perceive ourselves as healthy, as robust, if the image in the mirror, even though of course I can see my face changing and I'm aging, but if the image that I see of myself tells me that I'm healthy, then I'm more likely to act and behave that way. Again, like the way we look at things, our perceptions affect our reality. And so I really want to do everything I can now to, again, encourage my own health going forward. And that's what kind of brought me down this different journey. So the past year, I've been doing a fair bit of additional education and training well beyond med school in functional health and functional medicine. And I have to say, these guys doing functional medicine, they've known a lot of good stuff for a really long time, and I feel a little late to the game. In some ways, I guess I'm earlier coming into this than others, but in some ways, I kind of kick myself and wish I had been more curious and more self-aware and had looked into this earlier. So my focus now really is in truly making myself the youngest, healthiest version of myself for today, but moreover, for down the road in the future. I want to be a healthy, mobile, cognitively intact, good-looking little old lady someday. So to do that, to do this for future me, I need to take care of present me. So there's really where I want to talk a little bit today is what kind of things should you potentially be considering and discussing with your primary care provider? What interventions and things actually make a meaningful difference to keep you not only looking your best, but more importantly, feeling and enjoying the best version of you going forward. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of importance in a lot of the fundamental things that historically classic allopathic traditional medicine just brushes over. And what are those things? Stress management, sleep, nutrition, exercise. These are the fundamental pillars of what is so important. And if I can just sort of support that, let me give you an example that we already know in real life that we see. I want you to think about blue zones. Have you heard of blue zones before? Blue zones are actually what we call those particular areas of the world where people live long lives, where you see good numbers of people who are over 100 who are still enjoying a good quality of life. They're not in long-term care facilities. They're up, they're moving, they're engaged in their community and engaged with their families. So there are some similar things, even though you can look at diverse parts of the world, these individuals share very specific traits in common. So why are blue zones so full of healthy older people? For several reasons. One, they generally involve areas where the community is very physically active. So where they're up, they're walking, they're moving. I'm not talking about doing HIIT classes and high intensity, but regular daily movement, regular daily use of your body really does keep you healthier longer. You want to preserve your muscle mass and your balance. So you know what? Taking the stairs instead of the elevator, if you just have a couple of floors, that is a gift to future you. People who live in hilly areas who are walking all over the place, a gift to future you. Again, if you live in a walkable area and you have the option of taking your car and it's a nice day, not snowing like crazy as it is on the day we're doing this, you know, get out there and walk and move. If you're younger and you don't have physical limitations, careful, gradual strength training under supervision is a wonderful thing to consider. But mobility really does give us quality of life, but also mobility at every age and stage can actually improve the quality of your life later. And it really isn't ever too late. You can start where you're at right now. And so again, maybe if you've been very sedentary, maybe you're sort of my vintage, a classic, again, sandwich generation, middle-aged, I hate to say that word like that, but midlife woman. And you know, you've got all the pressures of society on you and you focused all your time and attention to taking care of everybody else. So you've got older parents who have a lot of medical and physical needs and you're taking care of them. You've got what I call my quasi-adult children who may or may not have left the nest in various versions that still need time, attention, support. You've got your significant other, you've got work, you've got your besties. Like, again, there's so many different demands. And at the end of the day, you have no energy for you. And you're always on the last to be taken care of. You, girlfriend, you deserve a little time for you too. And so if you're at that point and you can relate to that and you haven't been, to a gym in forever, please don't feel overwhelmed. Maybe it's just something as simple as just deciding for yourself, okay, during my lunch hour, I'm going to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to go for a walk. And you can just start with something as simple as that. Or if you have a lovely pet at home, maybe you take your dog out for a walk instead of having the adult teen kids do it. Maybe you do it as your gift to you. One, that you don't have to nag them, and two, so that you actually get your physical exercise. So sometimes that can be a way, but these can be simple things. They don't have to be huge interventions. It's just really about trying to carve out regular time really frequently and listening to your body and doing it in a safe, graduated way. If you have major other health conditions, of course, do it under the advice and direction of your main care provider from a medical point of view. But just start where you're at. The big thing is just that first little mental commitment even to get started. So don't even wait till New Year's resolutions. Find and carve time out for yourself. You certainly deserve it, and you'll feel better as well. So again, exercise, a big part of it. Start where you're at. Very, very important. Always gets brushed over in sort of annual wellness exams. Oh yeah, do you work out? Are you getting any exercise? Okay, good. And next item on the agenda. But actually, it really is important. Then along that line is sort of what I would call sort of stress management and sleep cycle. So stress, and these are two separate topics, but they are actually interrelated topics. Trying to find ways to manage your stress is exceptionally important. Stress, and this can be the mental stressors of today. It can be road rage. It can be your long commute. It could be your ever-growing list of emails that you can't get through, or the barrage of text messages, or major things going on in your life. Again, maybe that parent you've taken care of is really taking a turn for the worse and it's unclear what to do. So again, lots of different things can bring stress into our lives. It's really important to do your best to try to sort out some of these stressors. Some of these things are really actually on your shoulders. You have a really sick parent and you need to take care of them. That is not necessarily one of those stresses you can just offload. But what you can do is see if there are other people who can shoulder the load with you. Share that load around. When you have other stressors that are not actually so critically important, maybe those are some of the things you just choose to let go. Or maybe you set up some healthy boundaries if people are taking kind of advantage of your kindness, and try to protect your time and your mental energy so that you don't get burned out. You can't give from an empty cup. And if you let yourself get burned out, there's no energy for anybody else, never mind your own good health. But it's not just about that. It's a physical issue as well. Our brain and our body are very tightly intertwined at the subconscious level. So most people don't really appreciate just how much high stress levels actually affect you negatively. So the brain and the way human beings have evolved to be here over thousands of years as a living winner species, to make it this far, is we had to out-survive through all kinds of different hardships. So again, when we were lower down on the pecking order in the food chain and we were food trying to survive the saber-toothed tiger, our stress mechanisms were things that actually helped us to survive. And again, for species to survive and evolve, it really is a matter of being able to out-survive your predators, out-compete your competitors, live long enough to maturity to have little baby humans and let them do the same. So these mechanisms allowed us to evolve to where we are now. But with our modern day stressors, those stressors don't go away. It's not like the saber-toothed tiger is chasing you. You climbed up a tree and you survived it. These things go on and on. The phone never stops with the little dinging of notifications and email messages. Again, these pressures build up. So we have to really appreciate that the type of ongoing chronic stress we have every day can really affect us. It can affect our mental health, of course, the obvious thing, but it can also affect our physical health as well. Long-term exposure to high cortisol levels can affect your hormone function, thyroid function, immune function. So again, autoimmune diseases, cancer risk, these sort of things go up. And if you look around in your world, just anecdotally, you may already know somebody who went through a very high stress situation and then in the year or two that followed came down with some sort of very serious health problem. So you need to take care of yourself. You need to protect your heart. You need to protect your mind. You need to protect your space and your time for self. So it's not selfish. In order to take care of others, you need to take care of yourself as well. So stress management is important. Again, in these blue zones, being part of a community is important. And so again, having important ties where you feel connected helps. And especially as we go through life, and again, if you look at family roles and lifestyle, women go through multiple iterations of their role, their sort of conventional role. So as a young woman, you know, you go off to school or college, or you get your first apartment and your first job, and you're all that in a bag of potato chips. And then should life take you along the path where you couple up with somebody and you decide to have a family, well, then there's a little shift. Now you're not the professional individual you were before. Well, actually you still are, but mentally sometimes you kind of set that a little bit on the back burner, and now you really see yourself as mom. And then for a good number of years, you know, while those kids are at home and growing, and when they kind of pseudo launch and bounce back and launch again and bounce back again and whatever, you're still mom. But at some point again, as they leave the nest, it's like, okay, I had so much of my time, my energy, my focus into that. Again, you have to reinvent yourself again, and on and on. And I find that later, as people are looking at retirement, and there's a lot of social connection, there's a lot of purpose, there's a lot of focused activity when we're involved in our careers and family raising. But later on in life at retirement, if you don't have other things that keep you connected, a lot of people at retirement can get very lost. And that can have huge psychological impact and very large health impacts, actually. So again, retirement is one of those things where maybe it's not for you something where you completely end all of your activities. In fact, better is a shift as opposed to a stoppage. And that shift can be pursuing your dreams and your interests. Maybe you always wanted to study. Maybe you had an interest in arts and music and you want to learn and follow some of your passions. Maybe your passion was to travel and you want to be engaged in learning. But always engaging your brain and learning keeps your brain function up there, and it helps to preserve cognitive function. And being connected and having meaningful social relationships, again, gives longevity. Looking at the example from the blue zone, in these blue zones, they usually have very strong ties with family and value on the seniors in the family model. And so a lot of times, even if these grandparents, great-grandparents may not be physically able to do like the heavy taxing physical demands of child raising, they're very much involved in the children's lives, in family, in other activities, with their peers, meeting up for coffee or to play chess or, you know, bocce ball or whatever it is that they enjoy. So in these blue zones, social connection and purpose, whatever that purpose is, and purpose can morph over our lives. So again, sort of tying it back into family's life cycle and personal life cycle. Again, whether you're a younger career individual or you've kind of morphed into dual role of mom and career, you know, boss babe, into, again, kids leaving the nest and still finding, you need to keep finding your purpose. Keeping a purpose and a reason to get up in the morning keeps you young and robust and healthy. So these things are all very important. Another thing about the blue zones, again, also to keep you as healthy as possible, is actually healthy diet and nutrition. And I'm not talking about fad diets here. Actually, I'm not a fan of fad diets at all. But there's loads of medical studies that have looked and evaluated the Mediterranean diet. And again, if you look at the blue zones, a lot of them are kind of in that belt where we see that optimal growing climate, a lot of connection with the food, the farm to table distance is shorter. And so they tend to have healthier diets. These are diverse diets that include a lot of colorful food, food that has been nutritionally grown well, a balanced diet, again, with rich protein, healthy fats, and moderate control of carbohydrates. One of the big problems we're really noticing in Western culture and civilization is this metabolic crisis we're coming into. In this fast-paced world we live in, all of us, myself included, have fallen victim to like the fast eat on the fly of highly processed foods that have very little nutritious value, as well as they have way too much simple carbohydrate. And it's not that carbohydrates are bad. They're not. They're an essential part of what we need as far as an energy source for our body. Certain parts of our body are very dependent actually on glucose in particular, which is what a lot of carbohydrates get broken down into. So it's not that glucose is the enemy. It's the type and the quantity that we're getting that really can make us very unhealthy. So the more you can prep your own food and the less pre-prepared food you have, the healthier you will be. The more colorful, again, and this dietary advice is sort of general dietary advice. There are some of you out there who have very specific health issues where this is not relevant. So again, this is intended to be something to talk about or review in the context of your own personal health conditions under the guidance of your physician, particularly if you have digestive issues or very severe food allergies. So again, keep that in mind. But again, a colorful diet, lots of phytonutrients, lots of healthy proteins can be very helpful in providing you with the nutrients that you need. It's not about being full, it's about nourishing yourself. Along that line, farming practices have changed. Our ground has changed. The way we package and handle our food has also changed over time, and we have less nutritious value than what we used to do. And so sometimes you might actually be surprised. It might be worth doing a vitamin panel and just some more advanced testing, just to see where your diet, as good as it may be, might actually fall short. And so again, I'm one of those people who, thought I was eating healthy before, but has now, as I've kind of gone through a very detailed look at what my habits are and what I'm doing, I've actually opted to do some supplementation. So supplements are an interesting category to look at. Supplements are not drugs. So they do not fall under the same rigors of evaluation as what pharmaceutical products do. So it's very important with a supplement that you look for a supplement provider, should you choose to take them, that does independent third-party testing to validate that what is actually on the label is actually in the bottle. You do need to do this. It's important because sometimes what is on the label is not necessarily at the quantity or the type that is in the bottle. So again, third-party tested brands are what you're looking for. And again, some of these trace minerals are hard to get. So I use some third-party tested. I do a multivitamin. I really do. Again, there's a role for it. Some of these trace minerals I just can't get in my daily diet in an adequate quantity. I also find, especially at this time of the year, and I do avoid the sun now, I need some extra vitamin D supplementation. Vitamin D is interesting because it's kind of hormone-like in how it works in our body, as well as it has a host of different functions. Sometimes people think of vitamin D exclusively for bone health, which of course it is important for, but it also has a lot to do with immune function, and it's used in a number of other areas in the body. So it is something I take. Coenzyme Q10 has a number of very important roles in many enzymatic processes in the body. It's a very critical supplement when it comes to neurocognitive indications and preventative uses, so I take that as well. Alpha lipoic acid, again, one of those supplements where there is some interest around cognition and prevention, because if you don't have your brain, you don't have anything later in life. So again, brain health is super important to me. I also take omega-3s and some 9s in the form of plasmalogens. Plasmalogens are something somewhat new to me. I've actually become more aware of them in this past year, and they are really quite critical for maintaining, promoting, and helping with brain health. The brain shrinks as we get older. It's just a fact that that's what happens. And it does that because brain is mostly made out of fat, actually. And it's a very delicate biological wiring system. And we've got gray matter and we've got white matter in the brain. The white matter is white because of the myelin sheaths. So the white matter is a lot of, if you use like an electrical analogy, it's all the connections. And so in order to keep those things connecting correctly, they need to be insulated like wires. And so that's what myelin does. So again, plasmalogens are helpful for that. Gray matter as well requires that. Gray matter has a lot of fat content in it too. And so it is benefited by having those. So I do use the plasmalogens. In some previous talks, we've talked about some of the benefits of urolithin A and N-acetylcysteine as well. So again, some of these other things are important. So again, without getting into all kinds of doses, etc., this is again not intended to be personal medical advice, but just things to look at and consider. They would be up there. Another very important thing, which a lot of people actually are somewhat deficient in, is activated B complex vitamins. If I were to say a vitamin that has, or a combination of vitamins that has a lot of work that it does in metabolism and overall body function, it would be B complex. So a lot of people have heard of B12, which is again very important for neurologic function, but the entire B vitamin family serves lots of roles. So again, good bang for the buck, so to speak, in most people is an excellent activated B complex. So again, another talk point. So that, if I'm sort of rhyming off what I have in my little old lady pill box every morning, encompasses most of what I kind of consider important for me. And again, these would be things that you can kind of think about and talk about and see what works for you. So important things. So I try to take care of inside me. I also try to practice what I preach. I go to the gym, I would say 5 to 6 days a week. And I really am working hard to try to get a regular sleep schedule. I try to manage my stress. I'm using smart tech. I've got my little Aura ring. I got some fancy little stackers off of Amazon to jazz it up. But the Aura ring is just sort of a way to keep these health issues front of mind for me. So it gives me some feedback on different things. Again, it's not a diagnosis tool, but it is a keep it in front of your mind tool, which I find helpful. So all of these things put together, I'm trying to keep the inside me as young and healthy as possible so that I have to do less work from my cosmetic end on the outside of me. So again, there are other things that I do, such as Botox and a little filler, and lasers and biostimulators and stem cells. But that really is my secondary level now that I'm really focused on internal health. So just a little bit of personal share, hopefully meant as motivation and just to show you we're all in this together. Again, just a final reminder that this is not personalized health advice. I just want to share some things with you to put them on your radar so that you can safely go back to your own physician, nurse practitioner, or primary care provider who knows you the best and have a good talk about some of these things and see what works for you and what's going to keep you the healthiest. So if you like the content that we have here, I would encourage you to follow us. I have a QR code here for our podcast. We're going to be doing this at lunchtime, a little lunch and learn on Wednesdays, and I'm trying to run it from about 12:15 to 12:45-ish, so that again, if you need to wrap up from your morning or get ready for your afternoon, we don't run too long. And I have more information on a number of these topics. Here's a little QR for our website, so you can visit us there as well. So until next time, I just want to thank you for being part of the journey today, and I wish all of you good health and great connections with friends and family. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to hopefully seeing all of you next week on our next episode of Longevanity. Bye for now.